Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 199, the penultimate episode 200 of Salvaggio and Cratty here for you again another Wednesday night, 6:58 p.m. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Twitch, Podbean, and Podchaser. Tons of hockey tonight with some basketball and football sprinkled in. Again, I say it every time, but one of my favorite episodes of the year because I get to do my mock draft and talk about the draft and other stuff going on leading up to it. But we did have our second of two championships be crowned. The Florida Panthers won the cup. Edmonton's historic efforts were thwarted, and we'll get to that and a lot more in a couple seconds. But Ryan, before anything, how you doing on this fine Wednesday?
Doing good. Still riding the high of the Celtics championship and the parade from last week, even though I did not attend the parade. We'll have your not live in person thoughts, but you were there, of course, so we'll get your thoughts on that. Of course, Patriots breaking some news right after it seemed like we got off the show last week, so that was very nice of them to do so. We haven't had that in a while, so that was a nice little change of pace there. Taking back to our old days where it seemed like, news broke every time we finished the show. And of course, like you said, the big one, we finally have an answer to what the Linus Ullmark trade was. Spoiler alert for you and I, it was not good, the return, in our opinions. I don't know, maybe if you've come off that, so maybe I misspoke there, but you and I were not very happy when that trade broke down a couple nights ago. And then, of course, like you said, the big one, the NHL draft, which, as you mentioned, is quite the time for you.
Yep, sure is. Before we get to the trade, we'll talk about the end of the Stanley Cup Finals. Edmonton really put up a fight, really, turned the series, and in classic Florida fashion, the thing that was lurking for anyone that even had confidence in Edmonton, I bet, is this where Florida just figures it out and, makes all this for nothing? They did. They won 2-1. Sam Reinhart is the hero in the second period, 4:49 left. It would have been the first 3-0 comeback since 1942 if Edmonton pulled it off in the finals. That is, they have another 3-0 comebacks. We know one all too well from about 14 years ago, but 2-1 win. Matthias Ullmark scores after an early, I forget who scored for Florida, but that was good to see. Good response. I believe it was Verhaeghe that tipped it. Actually, really good tip. Pretty good game. Like I didn't have any huge complaints about anything. It was just a good hockey game. Unfortunately, Edmonton did not come out on top. It is what it is, though. Season's over. Congrats to the Panthers. As much as I hate them, they were built for this. So I imagine Kyle Okposo will go out on top, which is cool. He makes an extra $500K at the potential end of his career as an incentive for winning the cup. So he goes from Buffalo to Florida to potentially win the cup in his last game. Wasn't very loud in there. I will chirp them. I saw the Justin Thomas video he posted. Wasn't really that loud. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it was just something from the phone's perspective, but it didn't seem that loud in that building. But I wasn't there, so. Connor McDavid wins the Conn Smythe. I had some good money on Bobrovsky. You had some money on Bobrovsky and others, I think. I took Barkov as a hedge in case Florida won and they just gave it to Barkov because he eventually became the favorite for Florida's sake. You told me he was like minus 2,500 to 300 being McDavid to win the Conn Smythe. So does Vegas know? Is the NHL rigged? 42 points in 25 games, 8 goals and 34 assists. Third player in NHL history with over 40 points in postseason. Broke Wayne Gretzky's record for assists in a playoff year. First Conn Smythe winner on a losing team since J.S. Jaguar did it in 2003. So that's it. McDavid didn't even come out to accept it. I don't blame him. I did almost bet the Oilers to win next year, but really just because it's McDavid. I'm going to let the offseason play out first, though.
Smart.
I don't blame him for not coming out and do not think he should have won it, personally. I don't think, if you don't really do a whole lot of point production, I don't think he had any points in game 6 and 7. He might have had an assist or two. But, and if you don't score in game 7, no matter what you do, I don't think, someone on the losing team should get the Conn Smythe.
Right.
If they score if they did something otherworldly, which this is for hockey standards otherworldly, but if he got 60 points in however so many games, I get it, but I don't know. I think you got to give it to someone on the winning team in this scenario. Some people might disagree, but I think it belonged to Bob or Barkov, but that's just me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm right there with you on the game itself. I mean, Florida, as you said, figures it out. They get back to their game that made them so dominant throughout these playoffs. Just that suffocating defense that they played, and obviously we've talked about it, have come to hate going up against, but also respect because, like you said, that is how you should be playing at this time of year, and that's what tends to work is that great defense and forechecking and playing physical and everything. And Florida plays that to a T when they're at the top of their game. That's obviously what they got away from to get the series to a game 7. So to see them get back and do that, if you're a Florida fan, you have to love that and obviously love the result. And then obviously you said it too. They shut down all of Edmonton's top scorers. Hyman really wasn't all that impressive in the game 7. McDavid obviously tried his best, but he really wasn't doing a whole lot. And I think
Draisaitl, rough
Draisaitl was a
series.
no-show all season. Like he's the guy I'm waiting for. Like a Bergeron type of was playing with every sort of injury under the sun at this point because we
Haven't
talked
heard
about it.
anything.
Yeah, it was a little surprising. But we talked about that either last show or a couple of shows or maybe even both, that he's been a shell of himself all playoff long, it seems like, and especially in the cup final. So him doing nothing was kind of a stinker. But I mean, you could kind of see that coming the way that game ended. Like by the end of it, Edmonton was gassed. I think they had they said it on the
Yeah,
broadcast. Their top line was out there for like the final 2.5 minutes or something ridiculous.
yeah, it was
Um,
crazy.
so kind of played into Florida's hands, but again, at that point, you're going with your horses there to try to tie the thing up and ultimately
Right.
win it in overtime. And I'm with you. Like I've had this conversation with numerous people before. I think I told you a buddy of mine. I was texting him a couple weeks ago during the NBA Finals. We were talking about like some idiot's going to write that, oh, if Luka Doncic continues to put these numbers up, that he should win MVP, and even if Dallas loses the series. And my buddy brought up a good point where he said, if Tom Brady didn't win MVP in that Eagles Super Bowl where he throws for 500 plus yards, no one in a losing effort should ever
Yeah.
win any sort of MVP. And I 100% agree with that. Like, if
Right.
you're McDavid, how do you, and I'm with you, I don't have a problem with him not coming out to take the trophy because how do you accept that award? Like, that's one of
Yeah.
those ones where it's like, just
That
kind of
thing, like,
shove that
he
in
probably
a
didn't care
closet
at all.
somewhere.
Like,
What's
at
up?
all. I don't think he cared at all.
No, not in the. I mean, I don't know if you saw the interview where they asked him like, "What does it mean to win that?" And he basically was like, "It's cool, I guess." Like, and he said it like, "It's obviously an honor," but like,
Yeah,
basically,
who
what the
gives a
fuck am I
fuck?
supposed to do with this? Like, I don't even want to
Yeah.
look at this thing because I think like,
Just reminds me of the L.
yeah, I was just gonna say that. Like, anytime I would see that, I'd be like, "Man, we got," and especially the way it happened. You come from three down to tie the series. And then, not you don't lay a stinker because again, I give Florida all the credit in the world for the defense they played, but like
Yeah.
you score one goal in a game 7 after you all this hype to get there, like, and again,
Yeah.
McDavid, you were right, he didn't do anything game 6 or 7. I think 0 points in both those games. Um, like that just opens up a whole can of worms for him remembering just that the what could have been and ultimately what ended up happening. So I think it
Yeah.
was dumb. I think too. It's a little bit of conspiracy theory because, like you said, we were texting each other after the game and after it happened. Like the amount of articles that I saw trying to put the outline together that came out before the game, like, oh, Connor McDavid, should he win MVP? Will he win MVP um despite the outcome of the game? And then, like I said, minus 2,500 before the game starts. I think I heard somebody say it was like minus 5,000 at one point as well to win MVP on a different betting site.
Yeah.
So I 100%, and even the way they described it too, when they gave him the trophy of like, oh, he broke Gretzky's all-time assist record and led this. I'm like, you are hamming this thing up just so the face of the league gets something even in a loss, and it was kind of corny the way they presented it. But like I said, I don't agree with it at all. Him getting in, and maybe
Yeah.
that's because we both had money on Bobrovsky winning and you Barkov, but I don't agree with it. I don't care what you do. If you lose the game, you're on a losing team. You shouldn't be awarded MVP because clearly you were not good enough to help your team
Yeah.
win the series ultimately. And he's a great player, obviously we know that, but it is what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, it's tough. I wonder how much of a difference, having Vander Kane would have helped. But he had like a sports hernia thing going on.
Mhm.
Draisaitl, there's the whole he's like kind of like we'll wait and see on contract talk, so we'll see what happens with him. If he hits the
Bruins are the
market, it'd be
betting
one of the
favorites to land him. I don't know if you saw that today.
I did not.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember what site had that, but I did see
That
it
would be
scrolling through Twitter
incredible.
earlier that he is, I think,
He'd
three
be
to one
like one of
odds.
the biggest free agents to hit the market of our lifetime. Like
I wouldn't doubt that.
definitely.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that would be insane. Just give him what he wants in that case. Um, I'll be shocked if something doesn't come out that he was hurt because I noticed a couple times in particular, like not only how he was playing, like he would take minor contacts and like labor over. Like I feel like there's something
Hmm.
maybe in the rib area that's pretty banged up or something.
They
I think
said it on the
Ekblad said he had like
broadcast.
a high ankle or high ankle
Hmm.
maybe and low ankle sprain or fracture, like something like that. That's
Hmm.
crazy. But yeah, credit to the Panthers, man. I guess, like they were just built for it. If they keep this core together a little bit with like guys like Reinhard Montour, maybe Tarasenko, right pieces, I could see them repeating, honestly, but it'll depend on how Bob holds up because he was awesome a lot of the playoffs. But then, once things kind of spiraled, we saw a little bit of Titsky come back. Not like stinker after stinker, but like, he was vulnerable. So you
Hmm.
got to use that joke as the layup. But we'll
Absolutely.
see.
Yep.
It's not quite the McKinnon path when like McKinnon had that one interview after they lost in the playoffs and he's like just like super pissed and like you could tell it was like we're gonna look back at this when he wins in 2 or 3 years. Like McDavid almost has to win one the next 2 3 years, so he's gonna do everything in his power to do that. And the Oilers are gonna have to surround him with the right group too because he can't do it alone. We saw that, and
Hmm.
in Game 6 and 7, he didn't put up any points, so it's a little bit on him too.
Absolutely.
But
Yep.
he did what he could to get there as much as he could. So, congrats to the Panthers, I guess. Yeah, is what it is. They
Hmm.
they win. Linus Ullmark was traded um, before the start of Stanley Cup Finals, and I tweeted that morning that I'd like to see it happen that day, and it
Immediate
happened.
regret.
And I'm not super thrilled with the trade, as a lot of people are feeling the same way. They trade Linus Ullmark with no extension in place to Ottawa. We'll see what happens there. They get their own pick back via way of Bertuzzi to DeBrincat. Now Ullmark makes its way back to the Bruins. Eunice Corpusalo at 25% retained. One of the worst goalie seasons in like a while from him last year. One of the most puzzling free agent signings I've ever seen. Last summer, I was immediately skeptical of why they did it, and I was proven right. And now he's on the Bruins. So, um, just a bad goalie, really not very good. He has had flashes though in the past, so you got to hope goalie Bob and crew can pull that out. In terms of high danger scoring chances allowed, Ottawa and Boston weren't that different, so I don't think the team defense aspect is as strong and ironclad as people seem to think.
Hmm.
But the Bruins have improved players that they've acquired in the past, so maybe they can do that there. Um, you know, the last time my most recent source of hope is when he did that brief stint with LA. He was pretty good. And LA was like more capable than Ottawa, as we figured out down the road. That was after LA or Columbus, so maybe they can insulate him well and give him the support he needs because the guy's getting a lot of flack already, and rightfully so for his play. It's nothing personal. Anybody who's uses it personally is stupid in my mind. But you get Corpusalo, it lessens the impact of the trade, which was hopefully getting picks or like a prospect with a first round pick and getting that whole 5 million off the books. That is not the case, and it's partially not the case because the Bruins got Mark Kostelic. I enjoy Mark Kostelic as a fourth line player. I don't think he was necessary to have in this trade. Whether it was with him or without him, I think the Bruins still should have gotten another mid-round pick in this deal. And I would have rather had a fourth-round pick to Mark Kostelic. I'll be honest. I like him. He wins faceoffs. He wins defensive zone faceoffs. That's the appeal. He hits and he fights. I just don't know how necessary he was. And I would hate for that 835K to be like an annoyance down the road when you're trying to sign someone. You have to do some finagling.
Hmm.
It's a 1 year deal. He's 25. He's got good size. I like the player. It's nothing personal, but I don't know how necessary he was to get in this deal, but clearly they like him. And, we've seen at times with the face-off aspect that the Bruins, could use face-off help. So I don't know how much he'll play or if he'll be like the main fourth line center, but um, it's a decent ad player wise. I just don't know if it was super necessary in this deal. I'm not going to complain about it too much, but that's just my 2 cents in the whole situation. Um, the Bruins really gained like
Nothing.
1.165 million in cap space, which is pretty negligible when you were hoping for 5 million or
Hmm.
like 4 million somehow.
Yeah,
Like
something at least.
if you
Yeah.
got if you got someone on like a vet minimum deal
Hmm.
as like a throw in, which Kostelic essentially is, but it looks a little different when you got Eunice Corpusalo at 3 million for the next 4 years, which could be a disaster, to be honest with you. And if it is this year, this contract is easier to get out of next year. So yeah, they're not going to buy him out. They're not going to trade him. That doesn't seem like the plan. The buyout would be pretty lengthy, but it's honestly not that bad if they were to do it, in my opinion. Um, You can check out the buyout calculator before cap friendly goes away forever. Yeah, the no extension hurt the return, Ryan. I've given my spiel. I'm sure we'll talk, we'll go back and forth a little more, but where are you at right now? Have you maintained your stance or have you changed things up a little bit as you've found out certain things?
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I don't think I'm going to be a fan. I'm not going to be one of those people that are like, at this point, you should, because I've seen this argument that you should have just kept him at this point if this is going to be the return. Like, it's good that you do get a first round pick. You're back in the first round. You can hopefully,
Keeping him was a dumb idea. Anybody who says
yeah,
that is a dumbass.
yeah, that's why I had the same exact knee-jerk reaction when I saw that. I'm like, there's no way we could have gone through another offseason of just the goalie tandem and
I'll say
everything
this
like that.
real quick too. They should have got more than 25% retained.
Could you have though? Like
50.
Okay.
Go up to 50. I'm not saying they should have got 50, but letting them get off of a bad contract that was predictably bad and bailing out a divisional foe like this for a Vezina goalie is dumb. And if you want them, say, hey, how about you give us 40% retained? Like, you fucked up. We'll take it.
Yeah. You could have bartered
give us
more.
40, give us 35. Like 25 isn't enough. Yeah. But continue.
I'm not going to go into, because again, I don't know enough about the player they got back in Kostelic, but like, to me, we talked about this a couple weeks ago when we were doing, maybe it was a free agency discussion or whatever it was, but some of these young guys that maybe are looking for a chance to break this roster and have a roster spot. This to me looks like a guy that now clogs a position for a younger guy coming up that maybe wants to make a chance and could provide you some skill. And you said it, everyone that I've seen, a couple people are jumping at this guy because you mentioned it. He hits and he fights, and that's something that the Bruins need. So this is immediately going to get people, oh, let's go. This guy's going to be an enforcer for them. He's going to be great. He could be good. Again, I'm not going to knock him too much because I don't know enough about the player. But again, knee-jerk reaction to me, it feels like a throw-in. I do find it interesting. I like your idea of adding instead of a player getting another pick. I probably would have preferred that route as well if you were just going to get a fourth-line throw-in, it seems like. And again, maybe he's going to be good, but I don't see the need for it, especially when we talked about it before. You have guys that are up and coming trying to break onto this roster, maybe give you something. Because again, when we talked about that discussion, you had these guys like the Beechers and the Potters before he got hurt that popped. Obviously, different circumstances from where those guys were playing on the team line-wise, but you know what I mean. Like, you had some of these young guys hit these last couple of years, so maybe you get lucky again with that. But now and maybe this is the guy that does that. Again, I could be completely wrong here. But we'll have to wait and see on that. The goalie part of it, the Korpisalo, I hate it. Absolutely hate it. I'm with you. Like, you see Ullmark traded. You would like to open up more cap space. And the fact that you bring in a goalie that was one of the worst in the league last year. You said it. Maybe goalie Bob, he's got his work cut out for him this year. If he's able to figure out Korpisalo, then you give this guy some sort of massive raise or maybe the keys to the city or something, because he's going to absolutely deserve it. I just found it funny, all the like big time writers, unless you're Joe Hag, or, your Hags, who's a moron. Everyone seemed to jump on this trade and almost immediately. Connor Ryan, Ty Anderson, Scott McLaughlin, all these guys basically kind of had the same mindset and the same reaction of like, what are you doing bringing a goalie back that you didn't really need? Especially this was less than 24 hours maybe after they signed Boosie
too. Like, if
that's
it was 2 years,
that tenure
it's
too.
A little different. Like, Bussy needs waivers to go down now. So you might lose him. Like, I've seen people bring up the Dan Vladar thing, and I hope they can trade him for a third-round pick like Dan Vladar, but they're probably not getting a third-round pick for Brandon Bussy. They're probably getting like a fourth or a fifth at best. If somebody really wants a goalie and doesn't care about giving up a mid-round pick. I hope they trade him at this point because I feel bad for him, and I don't want to lose him for nothing. Like, you need draft assets, even if it's a fourth-round pick, a kid that could play 14 games in the NHL. Like, who cares? It's a dart throw. You don't have a ton of picks, and it's better to have the asset and hope it can turn into something. But yeah, I feel bad for Bussy. I feel bad for DiPietro, two guys that had a chance to make a run at that spot next year. And I'd be in a different spot if Bussy's 26, DiPietro's 25. If they were like 23 and 22, I'd be like a little more
lenient, yeah.
But like, I don't know. I just hope if Korpisalo stinks, they get out of the contract next summer, because I don't want to deal with this. I do kind of wonder if Kostelic was brought in because they don't plan on bringing back guys like Boquist and Maroon.
Okay, maybe.
So that's another thing. Like, Maroon plays left wing, so that's pretty negligible to the whole, Kostelic for Maroon linear path. But I don't know. Like, do they like him as a guy that can rotate in and out with Beecher at fourth line center? That's fine if that's the case, because I don't I'm not super optimistic that Maroon or Boquist are going to be back.
Hmm.
So I think Boquist, could just get paid elsewhere. I don't know what Maroon's health is going to be like and who's going to want him, but them adding a fourth liner here tells me that they might be ready to call Pat Maroon a rental and say thanks
And move
for
on.
being
Yeah.
a locker room influence, being a good piece, but it was a rental and it was a cheap one. So
Hmm.
um,
The other thing too, and we talked about this briefly, like I mean, we talked about it, so I'm sure you saw it. The Ty Anderson tweet, the point that he brought up that we talked about of this basically, this is not him talking, obviously, but it's kind of this, I felt the same way of like after reading it, you look at this trade, it feels like the Bruins kind of just rolled over on it. Like Ty
yeah,
Anderson
Don
had that,
Sweeney got taken to the woodshed here,
he
man.
absolutely did. Ty had a good tweet talking. I'm not going to read the quote, the tweet he was quoting, but he says, basically talks about calling your bluff. If the team with 890 guy locked in for 4 more years says, quote, you need to take this guy or we will not accept the trade. For your good goalie, we've been horny to acquire for 5 months now. You tell them to pound sand and have fun with their duo. That's how they
Right.
should have looked at it. That's summed up perfectly. Like if all we heard, and this was my main gripe at the start, we talked about it last show. Of all you heard about was, oh, the Bruins could get a first round pick and maybe tricking for Linus Ullmark. Like you do that deal in a heartbeat,
Yeah.
absolutely. How do you go from that to okay, you get your first round pick, which is fine. You get a fill in for that maybe can pan out,
Yeah.
but you get one of the
So
worst goalie and contract wise too in the league. Like I don't get how you
yeah.
go from super high of what we originally heard to this again, just kind of all right, like we can't have Ullmark on the roster anymore. We got to get rid of him for something. Let's just
Yeah.
throw this trade together and hope it works.
So the Chikrin thing, we talked about it because it was reported, and like it's an interesting thing to talk about in the event that Ottawa is desperate enough to do that, and that'd be a win for the Bruins. But that really wasn't super realistic
Mm-hmm.
when y'all thought about it, because now the Senators are looking for like a first and like a second again, or something like that for Chikrin. So that's like add that equivalent value to a trade like this doesn't really make a lot of sense for them. Um, what was I gonna? I was gonna go somewhere else. I wonder. So part of the reason I think this was made was because of the proximity to the draft. I think this
Mm-hmm.
shows that Sweeney really wanted to get into the first round. Um, I wonder if they just love this draft board and they had to get this done. They're like, screw it, we'll take it. We can
Maybe, yeah.
flip this, or we can turn this around. But that still doesn't justify. Well, we can turn this into a good pick rather. That still doesn't justify taking on a bad goalie for 4 years, even if the money's retained.
God, no,
Linus
yeah.
Korpisalo was 21, 26, and 4 last year with 0 shutouts, a 3.27 goals against, and an 890 save percentage. Let's look
Poorly.
at 2021-22. Plays 22 games, 7 and 11, 415 goals against, and an 877. 2020-2021, 33 games, 9, 13, and 7 with a 330 and an 894. This isn't new. He's had better, seasons in the
No.
past, better stretches of play, but overall, the numbers are bad. And I'm sure
They're
goalie Bob
declining
and
too.
Korpisalo, if they can get on the right wavelength here. Similarly, they can fix this and he can become somewhat decent. But there was not enough to like about this player to do this.
God,
Like
no.
if there was something, he's 30 as well. He's 30.
Mm-hmm.
So like best case scenario for this guy is like a 2.8 goals against and like a
Mm-hmm.
900 save percentage or like an 898. Like that's really what it feels like. And
What I
that
think
sucks.
the more I think about this too, and again, we've talked about it a little bit last week with once you get to the more in a different sense of once you get to the playoffs, you do ride one goalie. This to me kind of feels like this might be the death of the goalie tandem for the Bruins. Like they're gonna let Swayman ride with the majority of the starts. Like I'm not saying
Yeah.
like Tuukka Rask level 60 plus games or whatever that year was a couple years ago, where he's playing 90% of the games out there. But like again, I don't unless they can figure something out with this guy. And I was kind of hoping when I first saw this too. And again, we'll briefly touch on the Bussy extension, which maybe now is all for naught. But when I first saw that, I'm like, all right, maybe this is a guy you just bring in. You have some competition for Bussy, and then if he doesn't pan out in the preseason, then you can go to Korpisalo as your backup. But like you said, you can't really
Yeah.
trade him. You can't bury. I mean, you could bury him in the minors, but like you said earlier, it doesn't seem like they're going to do either one of those things. They're not going to buy him out.
Mhm.
We've already seen those tweets that they're going to keep him.
Yeah, the minors thing would be dead cap and money savings. So
Yeah,
like you're not even
absolutely.
getting full savings. So like if Corpusalo is bad and like needs to be like a 20 game guy or 22 game guy, there's only 3 goalies last year that played 60 or more games. Connor Hellebuck, Alexander Georgiev, and UC Saros. at this point, the rotation be damned. I want Swayman to play at least 55 games, minimum 55 at
All
this
right.
rate,
It's
which
funny. I didn't
isn't
know that
great, but
about.
like it's trending like a little bit more towards like splitting time more. Like I feel like we would see more 60 game guys a season like 3 or
Mhm.
4 5 years ago. But like, dude, you really might have to lean on Swayman heavily this year.
See,
And for a guy like him, I think Swayman can handle that. I think he's a psycho, a bit too. So
oh,
he
I
would
do
relish
too.
that. But in Corpusalo, actually, funny enough, played the 10th most, had the tied for the ninth most starts actually. So maybe he does play better with a lighter workload. That's one thing. Backup, lighter
Perhaps, yeah.
workload, 25, 30 games versus 55. I'm not super optimistic though. I'm
One
really
thing
not.
that one thing that scares the crap out of me now that you just mentioned that as we're talking about a heavier workload for Swayman, you said Hellebuck was one of those guys on that list. What did he do in the playoffs this year?
Swayman won't, but yes,
I
it's a
yeah,
it's a
I
reasonable
don't
concern. It's a
yeah,
reasonable
it's
concern.
like I said, I didn't know that until you told me, and now like even more doom and gloom. So I don't know,
So
like
I
I
wanted to
don't
point
get
out
the reasoning.
I wanted to point out the buyout because it's not going to happen, but it is interesting, and I want to back up, me saying I was okay with it. 250K this season, 625 next season, 1.375 in 26-27, 1.75 in 27-28. Those around $1 million numbers are going to be nothing because the cap's going to be over 100 million by then, and then a million each year from 28 to 32. That's nothing, but feasibly, you don't want to be paying a player that's not on your team to 2032. So it's
Correct.
unrealistic
Yeah.
and dumb in that
Bad
sense.
business. Yeah.
But money wise, hey, you could do worse.
It's true.
You could be the Coyotes who are paying Shea Weber 7.9 million for the next 2 years when he's retired. First ballot Hall of Famer, by the way. We'll get to that in a second. That was kind of surprising. Yeah. So maybe they love someone in the first round. Ullmark and his agent not getting the extension really hurt things. Maybe Ullmark and his agent did this to screw the Bruins.
I think so. I said texted you this the other day. It crossed my mind after all the talk of Ullmark, and we talked about it a couple times, and to the point where we're starting to piss me off. How much I'm fine with where I am. Don't want to go. I could see this as one final. Like, all
Yeah.
right, you're gonna trade me, especially to a crap bag team like Ottawa. Fuck you. You're not getting anything for me. Like,
Yeah, and
and
the
that
fact
would
that like the way he's
very
talked to the
aggravating.
media, I'm not optimistic that he's going to sign with Ottawa, and I think they're going to be.
Why would you?
I mean, like they can be better. Like last year was a disaster. They can fight for a playoff spot more than being in the basement of the division. But
Mhm.
um, the fact that he's non-committal right now, I don't like that. Alex DeBrincat didn't extend after you traded for him. Jacob Chikrin hasn't extended. Is going to get traded. If Ottawa stinks, they might be dealing Linus Ullmark to a playoff contender against the Bruins or someone they might play in the Cup final.
Mhm.
Because I don't know, like with the track record, like you don't know if Ottawa's gonna be able to get it done. But if Linus essentially said if he's comfortable like with the schools and for his family, he'd consider it. But obviously, he's not super akin to that now. So we'll see. It's fine, but it's also not fine. We just gotta hope they don't go off the board on the draft because that's when I'll be upset unless it's someone
Mhm.
I like.
Yeah,
So
this could turn very catastrophic very quickly. Two real
yeah,
quick
man.
because as we talked about it when it obviously happened last week. I don't understand how you can see what Markstrom went for, a goalie who's older and
And a
worse off than Allmark.
23-year-old defenseman.
Yeah, and this is what the return is like.
Yeah, but the difference is Bruins did get a 2024 pick. So
Fair, yeah,
yeah, but I mean, let's be real. The Flames weren't getting the 10th overall pick from New Jersey
correct.
for Jacob
For
Markstrom
Jacob
unless New
Markstrom, yeah.
Jersey was incredibly desperate. Um, but yeah, that's where we're at on the trade. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully, goalie Bob can work his magic because he is cut out. He's got the work cut out for him.
He is
Um,
at the drawing board, excuse me, currently just
yeah,
furiously writing stuff down, watching film, trying to figure out how the hell they can get anything out of this guy.
yeah.
Like,
We've used this verbal meme before, but like the Charlie Kelly meme when he's
yeah,
got
yep.
the clipboard,
hmm You
on
said
the
what,
bulletin
20
board.
games for this guy? Well, what are we penciling in?
Yeah, I
14 losses automatically on the schedule for the Bruins
I
next
would
year? Like,
I would like Corpusalo to play under 30 games. That
okay.
is where I'm at. More close to 25 or 22 or
hmm
something if he's gonna stink. But speaking of Brandon Bussey earlier, they did re-up him for another year. We'll see if they lose him on waivers or not. Ian Mitchell sticks around too. depth player, AHL guy. Clearly liked it here. Clearly they like him. Bruins switched back to jerseys. A lot of people were upset about this. I hope these people weren't expecting them to keep the Centennial jerseys, and they're just upset that they're not keeping them. But I think regardless of the fan reception of the jerseys, even now, they were going back. It is what it is. I did say, talking to someone on Twitter, I wonder if they even considered like keeping the style of the Centennial jersey, but doing the regular gold instead of like the glittery gold, like a best of both worlds type of thing.
Yep.
But I don't know if like maybe they revisit this in a couple years and we do some sort of hybrid like that, or they kind of bring some elements to that, because I don't think the Bruins are like tied to this design forever, but like that was a special thing, like a 1 year thing. So they were awesome though. Like they grew on me as the year went along.
Absolutely.
I really came to like them.
Yep. But yeah, I'm with you. Like the people that, again, you must not know what a centennial celebration or centennial season is, because if you thought that they were going to go with those jerseys the rest of the way, like I don't know what to tell you. Like it's a one-off thing.
I think a lot of people were more so just upset because they liked them.
Fair.
But hopefully you bought a jersey in that case. Let's catch up on some stuff and then get to the more recent meat and potatoes. Alex Nedeljkovic, after some rumblings that one of their AHL guys was going to take over as backup, re-ups with the Penguins for 2 years of $5 million. Yegor Chinakhov re-ups with the Blue Jackets for 2 years of $4.2 million. Nice value there. Alex Turcotte, 5th overall pick a few years ago, got a few NHL games. Maybe might play more this year, finally get his big shot. Signed a 3-year veteran minimum deal at like 23 years old, which I feel like is pretty uncommon. So maybe that was the way for him to stick around. But like, that's going to be really nice if Turcotte starts to hit that 5th overall pick upside. But he's going to have to work for it. He's, a little bit behind schedule. But that was kind of a weird deal to see. Casey Middlestat and Dylan DeMello re-up with their teams. Middlestat gets 5.75 per year over 3 years. DeMello gets 4.9, I believe, for 4 years. So that takes it till he's 35. What the hell was that? That was weird. You see that? Like dragged the link in the outline. DeMello 4.9 per year. So yeah, that's pretty nice. I like Dylan DeMello a lot. He is 31 though, so we'll see how that deal ages. I think he would have been a nice free agent that would have had a lot of interest, but Winnipeg locks him up. Great player. Jake Wallman. Detroit was a little weird yesterday, Ryan. I tweeted you the trade they made. They traded Christopher Gibson. I think his name is Christopher, who had an awesome OHL season, drafted him in the second round last year to Nashville for Jesse Kiskinen and Tampa's second round pick that Nashville had from the Ryan McDonough trade. Why would you give up an 18-year-old third round winger and a second round pick for a second round defenseman from the same draft? They're both from last year's draft. I don't know. Maybe they loved this kid. But as we saw, the Red Wings attached that Tampa pick that they acquired to Jake Wallman to dump him as a salary dump to San Jose. Jake Wallman, reasonable contract, pretty good player. Like, he's becoming defensive partner of Mort Seider, and he's the one that gets dumped. When you have Oli Mata, you could dump, who was fine last year, but I think he's a more appealing guy to dump than Wallman, Ben Sherratt, Justin Holl, who they might buy out anyways. Really weird, really confusing. But maybe they're doing it because they plan on bringing in a big-time defenseman. Maybe they want to bring in Chychrun, maybe a big free agent, maybe someone nobody's thinking about. Maybe they just want the cap space to go after Jake Gensel, who they seem to like. Maybe some other guys are on their radar too. But looks like Detroit's ready to make a splash. They are in the mix on John Gibson as well. They seem like maybe the front runner along with another team. So the Gibson thing, I think he has 3 more years left of like just about $5.5 million or something. So that might be tricky to move. Gibson, as part of his surroundings, has had a tough few years, but you got to put part of that blame on him too. It was really weird situation. But Detroit might be cooking, and that's a nice pickup for San Jose. They're not going to be nasty because of Jake Wallman, but it's a good little pickup for free. Good contract. Jeff Skinner will be bought out. It seems just about official now. Shout out to my friend Chad D. Dominicus for furthering this report from Jeff Merrick and Elliot Freeman from a couple weeks ago. He's a Sabres guy, Chad. So looks like we'll see that buyout when the buyout window opens. I believe that is the same day as free agency opens, if I'm not mistaken. So July 1st, Monday. Jeff Skinner will have a lot of suitors. He doesn't play defense, but like he drives play pretty well. We talked about this last week, and he can still score. I just want to see the guy play a playoff game. He's been in the league for a while. He hasn't played a playoff game. It's kind of crazy. So he'll sign with a contender. Don't know how much he'll get. Maybe he'll be a Bruin. I don't know. Wouldn't be opposed to it. You just really got to hope he's not a defensive liability.
Yeah, you got to line
But
him up with some defensive-minded guys, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah, I'd imagine they'd like to he'd like to go to a contender. So we'll see. But I think it was more so the $9 million than the player for Buffalo, and maybe they're planning to load up with that extra money. You know, that Buffalo and Detroit, two teams right on the fringe, two teams a lot of people expected to finally make the playoffs. So maybe they're going big ticket hunting. Maybe Buffalo's going for Jake Gensel as well. We'll see. Matvei Michkov will join the Philadelphia Flyers. He got out of the contract with Ska sooner than expected. Seen by some as a hockey genius. If you watch him, the kid's unbelievable. He's going to step into the Flyers right away. Seemingly, the Flyers are the only team he wanted to get drafted by last year. He has gotten out earlier than expected. It was expected he might have been in the KHL for 2 or 3 years longer. So that's huge for Flyers, huge for Flyers fans, especially after having to trade Cutter Gauthier. This kid is going to be a fucking monster. Like, he's the real deal. He was so good, he was in the conversation for number one with Connor McDavid at times. Or Connor Bedard. Wrong Connor.
Both
Yeah,
pretty
he's
good,
the
though.
real deal. Really, really good. Part of the reason I think he didn't go a little higher was the Russian factor and the fact that he's not a center. Centers are commoditized, especially when you got Leo Carlson and Adam Fantilli in that draft. Vegas looking to create some cap space. They're working on March so we'll see what happens. Maybe that William Carlson thing we were talking about a couple of weeks becomes realistic for the Bruins. I
Wouldn't hate
prefer
that.
that over Elias Lindholm, please. Speaking of the Ducks, we were talking about earlier, Trevor Zegras is generating a bunch of interest. Seems like there's about 8 teams with very serious interest, including the Blackhawks and the Flyers. Joel Farabee could be on the move from there too. Maybe Travis Konechny. They're trying to sign him, but he's looking for about $9 million. So we'll see if Philly is willing to pay that or if somebody else will. Frank Vetrano, old friend, is gaining interest too, and he should because he's on a great deal for one more year before he hits UFA. If somebody can afford him, maybe he'll cost a first-round pick in this year's draft. They should go after him because Frank Vetrano is great and he got a cheap deal. So we'll see if Patrick Beek's mysterious ways will lead to him trading Zegras or Vetrano. But seems more and more like Zegras might actually start the season with Anaheim. Speaking of Anaheim, did you see Anaheim and LA's New Jerseys? Any thoughts? I liked them
Saw
both a lot.
LA's. Very cool. I have not seen Anaheim. I literally just got an update on my phone, though, that Anaheim, or they put them
Yeah.
together. Anaheim and the Kings both released it. But
So
I
if
did
you
see
want to
LA's. Very nice.
if you feel like taking a look at those, go ahead. I
Okay.
think the home jersey is kind of orangey, which is fine, but you know that's the goal. It's going to be kind of hard to look at times, though. I do like the font as well. I don't like that the webbed foot logo is on the shoulder, but you know you got to have some legacy there. I like the jerseys. I like the new spin on the Mighty Ducks logo. And the Kings are just classic. You wish they went with the purple and the yellow and the white,
Mhm.
but the black and the silver and white is their thing. They look great. They got the matte black helmets too. I think they're
Those are
abandoning the
cool.
silver.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
those
really
those are gonna
cool.
look really cool on the ice.
Yeah, thank you, Anaheim Ducks. Now we don't have to look at those dumbass fucking
Mhm.
jerseys anymore. Truly some
Those
of the
are
worst ever.
very bright orange, though. Those might
Yeah,
be, like you said, those are gonna take some time to get used to. Those might be an eyesore to,
yeah,
to start, but it is
yeah.
cool. I
Maybe
do like them going back. Them and the Kings both kind of the throwback style of logo, not logos of yeah. You can say logos, I guess.
I see people do those mock-ups like, oh, what if these new jerseys were the same, but if like we change the color of pants, change the color of socks? I wonder how those home jerseys, home uniforms for the Ducks would look like with some black pants. I think they'd look a little better, a
Yeah, a
little
little more.
orangey, little
Mhm.
heavy in the orange, but they are Orange County or Orange Country, whatever the hell it is. Um, Utah, as of today, is going for a top pair defenseman. Do they bring Jacob Chikrin back? I kind of doubt it without, you know, that long that trade saga was, but they're big game hunting. Are they going to make a trade for someone we're not thinking about? Um, Elliot Friedman said we could see an absolutely wild next couple of weeks with some big surprises nobody's thinking about. So maybe they go for someone nobody's thinking about. They're looking for a top pair D. Maybe that comes in free agency. Maybe it doesn't. But watch out for Utah. I'm sure they'd like to make the playoffs in their first year in a new market. Um, Frank Saravalli says is tripling down on the Leafs willingness and desire to trade Mitch Marner. Brad Treliving today, talking to the media, was kind of ho-hum about it, but that's to be expected. He's not like, yeah, we're going to trade Mitch Marner. Like, he's not going to just tell the media that. You got to keep it close to the chest. We'll see what happens. Maybe that happens at the draft, and that's one of the big things Friedman is talking about. Pierre LeBrun says the Sabres have serious interest in Marty Necas, and it sounds like that trade is going to involve one of Friday's first-round picks. So I ask, is Buffalo going to give up the 11th overall pick and potentially more for Marty Necas? That'd be a blockbuster.
Yes, it would.
A big blockbuster. They're one of the teams, them, Ottawa, and Utah, reportedly looking to move New Jersey too, looking to potentially move their pick. Teams did call Chicago. It was reported today to trade number 2, but they have no interest. Makes sense. Trying to rebuild around Connor Bedard. So yeah, we'll see what happens with Necas. It's kind of died down in the Bruins community because the Bruins don't seem to be that serious anymore. They're not really popping up in the mix anymore on Necas. So that ship might have sailed, but again, Freeman's talking about surprises. Maybe the Bruins give out that first-round pick and a bunch of stuff for Marty Necas. I don't know. I don't know if they even have the other assets to do it.
That was going to be my thing. Is they feel like it's calmed down because they don't have the bullets to pull off a trade like that compared to some of the other teams with higher draft picks that you just mentioned.
At this point, I don't really want to trade the first-round pick for Necas. I'd rather just go for a center in free agency. And we're gonna get Draisaitl next summer, so it doesn't even matter. So.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe
the books were right about McDavid winning MVP, so they're gonna be right about the 3-1 odds that I saw today that has Draisaitl going to the Bruins. Book it now. Place those bets.
Right. Speaking of the Oilers, Ken Holland will leave the Oilers, so that's interesting. There was a report that he was going to go to Chicago. That got shot down, but it's a big shakeup for Edmonton. Let's look at the Hall of Fame class real quick. Pavel Datsyuk, Shea Weber, Jeremy Roenick as the notable NHLers. Alex Mogilny doesn't get in for another year. Absolutely preposterous. Should have been in a while ago. Shea Weber is a first ballot Hall of Famer, despite never winning a Stanley Cup and never winning a Norris Trophy.
He never won a Norris?
Nope.
Wow, that's surprising.
Which is weird. He got close 3 times.
Yeah.
Never won a Norris. Never won a cup.
Did he go in on the first ballot as just an overall good guy?
Awesome defenseman, I guess.
That too.
Pretty
crazy. He's pretty good, yeah.
Pavel Datsyuk absolutely deserved first ballot.
For sure.
He was the magic man for a reason. Jeremy Roenick finally gets in. He's been on the ballot for a while. On the women's side, former United States women national team forwards Natalie Darwitz and Chrissy Wendell-Pohl get in the builders category. David Poyle and Colin Campbell get in. So that's a Hall of Fame class this year. We'll see what happens next year. Not going to get into it too much, but we figured we'd put that out there. But the Weber one was a little surprising. I think we could have waited on Shea Weber, but
like you said,
Alex McGillney stuff needs to end. Yeah, Datsuk's a no-brainer. Alex McGillney needs to get into the Hall of Fame. Teuvo Teravainen is hitting the market, barring a last-minute deal, so that's another winger. If the Bruins want to replace Jake DeBrusk, maybe him too. That deal has to be right for me, though. I'm not like the biggest on Teravainen, but at the right deal, I would take it. But he's already 30, maybe 31. Solid player, but I don't know. Haven't heard any links to the Bruins and him. The NHL awards are tomorrow, but like we'll talk about that after the fact. We don't need to do like an awards preview. I'm just hoping my futures hit.
Have they previewed that at all? I feel like I haven't seen anything.
Like no advertising.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that.
It's like the NBA draft. Nobody cares about the NBA draft tonight because
didn't know that was tonight either. Yeah, I mean, they're dropping the ball everywhere with
crazy.
The baseball did the same thing. They had, I think, was it Rick Wood a week ago? They had that. Didn't see any advertisement for that.
What is Rick Wood? I don't know what that is.
There you go. They played it at one of the I think it was the oldest stadium in the majors.
What is Rickwood though? Is that the name of the stadium?
It's the name of the stadium. So Willie Mays. It ended up being pretty timely because when But yeah, I mean, I feel like they didn't advertise that until like a week or a day or two before it happened. So like sports are dropping the ball everywhere when it comes to advertising, I guess. Like I legit couldn't even tell you who's up for it. I mean, you would obviously know more than I would, but like have no idea who's finalists for MVP. No idea who. I mean, Rookie of the Year, you can maybe make your guesses here, but like I don't know who's a finalist for any of the awards. Demko,
plus 750, please. He won't win. Connor Hellebuyck probably win, but please, Bobrovsky's in there. And I have McKinnon for Hart amongst Kucherov and McDavid. So we'll see.
Okay.
I accidentally took Linus Ullmark for Vezina like a long time ago, and that's not going to happen. So,
No, it is not.
my stupid ass thought it was the day of, and he was at crazy odds. I was like, what the hell is going on? I didn't even look. It was for next year's awards. It wasn't for the awards that night, and I took it just to steal money. I was like, oh. Then I got
Whoops.
avoided by DraftKings. I asked them to void that one, and the other bet I put in was a bunch of money on McDavid to win the Hart, which could happen, and they voided the wrong one. So I could have got
Nice.
screwed out of the
Yeah.
McDavid Hart money from this time last year. But yeah, the Ullmark bet is just sitting there, $25 down the drain.
Yeah, like this
We're getting
idiot. Thanks for the free money.
Seriously. But at least they gave me the refund on one of
There you
them, I
go.
guess. They could have just not done that. We're getting a CHL US NTDP top prospects game for the first time next fall, which would be pretty cool. 2-game series. Top US National Development Program guys and top CHL prospects. That'll be fun. A man named David Johnson is creating the Stanley Cap.
The running back?
No, not that
Oh,
David
damn
Johnson.
it.
That would be funny though. He's creating the Stanley Cap as an alternative to Cap Friendly. So he's working on that. So for any people who are going to miss Cap Friendly like myself, watch out for the Stanley Cap. This came across my desk thanks to Jim Behringer of Full Press as well. We got some rule changes we can touch on. I haven't read these at all. We can touch on these real quick. New rule 38.2, situation subject to coach's challenge. A coach's challenge will now be permitted to take down a penalty for a puck out of play. This will only apply to delay of game penalties when the puck is determined to have deflected off a player, stick, glass, or boards, and not on a judgment call on how the puck left the defensive zone. How do we feel about this? I mean,
what does it mean by take down?
Like just
use?
nullify it?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't really have any thoughts on that one.
No, wording's little weird for my idiot brain.
I don't know. It's also just like this stuff's not that important. We just want to see if there's anything crazy.
Yeah.
Rule 63.8, line change following a dislodged net. There will be an adjustment to Rule 63.8 so that the defensive team cannot make a line change in the event the goaltender accidentally dislodges the net. The old language just applied to the skater. Makes sense. I mean, that one's pretty simple.
Exactly. It's cut and dry.
Yeah, cut and dry. Rule 76.4, face-off procedures centers. Following an icing, the offensive center now will receive one warning, same as the defensive player for a face-off violation. Okay, like
all right, cool.
That's just adding it to offensive players. Not that crazy. On sportsmanlike conduct, players sitting on the boards. The referee will now provide the offending team, coaches, and players with one warning regarding players sitting on the boards, and will so advise the other team. After one warning in a game, the team participating in the warning, precipitating the warning, rather. I should have made this picture a little larger so I can read easier. The warning will be issued to be a bench minor penalty for future violations. Makes sense. Kind of dumb and tacky and kind of necessary, but like whatever,
you get a lot
I don't
of
really care.
you got a lot of guys sitting on the boards during games.
Are we gonna get like 2 of these every season? Like I don't care. But yeah, we got some new rules. Shout out to Jim Behringer. Gave us a little extra to talk about. Maybe people who listen to the podcast will have raucous debates amongst their friend groups about these. But Ryan,
keep people up at night. We
have the last centralized draft, which means we're going to like an NFL thing where not everybody's going to be there. It's not going to be this big hubbub like the NHL is around the draft. It's going to be like in war rooms and stuff. And with certain players going as usual. So it's going to be like the NFL.
That.
Yeah, it is. It's
a reason why they're
under the radar.
Changing
I don't know.
That?
Teams want it. Enough teams want it to. So
okay.
First team to have the draft in the Sphere. That's a win for the NHL. Had awesome viewership for the Stanley Cup Finals, by the way, too, which is pretty cool. I think like they're like the best since the 2019 final, Game 7 or something. Let's get to the mock draft, and like I should have done with this one, for the time being, I'm going to make the text a little bigger here, so it's just a little easier to read. Let's start. Number 1, Macklin Celebrini. Don't even need to explain it. It's going to happen.
Has drawn similarities.
No hot take.
All right.
Has drawn similarities to Sidney Crosby and Jonathan Toews for a reason. He's a complete player. He's a guy that's going to be a leader. He's clutch. There's not a real weakness in his game. He's a cerebral player. He's going to be a leader. He's going to be a number 1 center. He's awesome. Watched him a lot this year.
He's small, isn't he? Any concern there? I thought I heard a couple people say
he's like 5'11". So
okay.
Maybe
not
5'10".
too small. So maybe the people I heard were a little over dramatic. So I will take that with a grain of salt.
He's great. I don't think anyone should have any concerns about Macklin Celebrini. But the big thing with him will be he's going to be an 18-year-old sophomore because he went in accelerated schooling. Does he stay at San Jose or not? Those conversations will be had following the draft. Big debate starts here. There's no challenger to Michael Celebrini. So is it Artem Levshinov or is it Ivan Demidov? I'm sticking with Levshinov because although they had the Russian players combine essentially in Florida, and Demidov did good. His English is good, which is a big thing for some teams. And he impressed teams so enough. So maybe that changes things. He's met with a lot of the top teams as well. I think he's meeting with Montreal again tonight. So we'll see how that goes. Demidov's great. I think the Kucherov comparisons are accurate, but another thing with him is with everything going on in Russia, no scouts have been able to get live viewings. They've just seen film and seen highlights.
Complicates things a little bit.
Complicates things. I don't know if he's falling to 8 overall like Matvei Michkov did. It's obviously going to be easier to get him over. There's belief he'll be in the NHL relatively soon, not like this fall, but he's a great player. But there's also concerns of him kind of tearing up a lower level Russian league instead of getting KHL minutes. But if he played in the KHL, he wouldn't have played as much because they don't really play rookies a ton in the KHL. But people wonder about the competition level with Demidov, but you see the skill, you see the finishing ability, you see the hands. He's a really, really fantastic player. You have the idea of pairing him up with Connor Bedard long term or looking for a number one franchise defenseman. Unless Kevin Korchinski becomes that or Alex Vlasic for the Blackhawks. Anybody who's, I've talked about college hockey with knows I'm a huge, huge, huge Artem Levshinov guy. I think he's a hockey psycho, like all the cliches, like lives in the workroom, gives himself extra time on the ice. He's big, he's powerful, he's smart. He had a great offensive season in his first year North America, or second year North America, excuse me. First in college hockey, I should say. He's great. I think he's got the makings of number one defenseman. If he's number two, I think that's fine because some teams already have an established number one. You just need him to be a sturdy, reliable, top pairing defenseman. I think he will be. I think he's awesome. I think he's got a little stone cold killer in his game, and I love everything about Artem Levshinov. I think Chicago needs to take him here instead of Demidov, but it's going to be an interesting debate to follow, and I don't think they're in the wrong if they take Demidov instead. Anton Salayev, the guy that's drawing comparisons to Victor Hedman and Zdeno Chara because of his large size. He can move very well for a 6'7" defenseman that played in the KHL and played pretty well from the sounds of things. The unicorn of the draft in every way, I'd say, besides maybe the 6'7" Dean Letourneau, who we'll talk about later. Salayev's great. And, if you want to bank on that size and him becoming a shutdown, top pairing defenseman, can provide a little offense, you have to take that chance. Pat Verbeek is very tight-lipped, so are the Ducks. I wonder if they're just holding the cards close to their chest and they're just going to take Salayev, add to a great young defensive core with Mintukov and Zellweger, guys like Dionisio down the line, Tristan Luneau, Jackson Lacombe. Add Salayev to that. He can be a top pairing guy. He's great. You can also go Caden Lindstrom. I bet on Caden Lindstrom to go third plus 1,000. I think that's another one. Verbeek likes guys that hit and have size. Caden Lindstrom is one of those guys. We'll talk about him going number 4 next to the Columbus Blue Jackets. Maybe your 1-2 punch at the future. Adam Fantilli and Caden Lindstrom. Missed a bunch of this year with a back injury, but played at a 52 or 57 goal pace, scored 27 goals in 32 games. He's big, he's fast, he plays nasty. He can score from pretty much anywhere. He's got great hands. I don't think there's a ton to dislike about Caden Lindstrom, and especially at the combine, he got the medical green light. That's big for teams. I think Columbus has an interesting decision to make between him and Demidov, but they've got some good wingers. I think Demidov is no doubt a great fit, and they've done good drafting Russians recently, so that's something to consider as well. But it's hard to get a read with a new guy running this show as Don Waddell is. I think they're going to opt for the size and the center position here, lock that down for the future, and get a guy that I think is going to be a real star around the net and can really cause havoc. Quick trivia: who had the 19th pick from Truck Vegas? Montreal. This is where the Ivan Demidov roll stops, and I would hate this. I really would, but I pretty much hate anyone in the area to go to Montreal. They're just going to get a great player here.
Mm-hmm.
But Demidov, like I said, the Kucherov comparisons are very fair. There's a lot of similarities there, and obviously they're both Russian left shot forwards, great finishers. Demidov gives the Canadians another elite finisher to go with Cole Caulfield. You could love a center here, and you'd love to get Caden Lindstrom. Maybe they go for Consta Helenius, but I'm giving them Demidov here. You can't go wrong with the skill. I think you just take this pick and run if you're Kent Hughes and the Canadians. Zeev Bouillon beat my Eagles, was a huge reason why. He's cerebral. He's incredibly smart. I've watched a ton of him this year in college and international play. He's just so technically sound and does everything with great intent. He's not gonna blow you away with speed all the time, but his decisions are so smart. He's so smart with the puck, and he could finish. He had one of the best offensive wise defenseman seasons in college hockey ever. So lot of weird names. What's the weirdest?
That's hard to
Weirdest
choose
name
in
in the
hockey.
draft this year. There's a Leo Saline Wallenius. That's an interesting one. Stian Solberg, Michael Brandsegg, Nygaard, Marek Vanacker. I'd have to look down the board, but I'll send you some names. So that's Truck in the YouTube chat. Let's get to number 7. This is a really interesting one because I've gone so many ways with Ottawa. They could trade out of this pick. They could go a defenseman or a forward. I think with the rise of Beckett Seneca, they're going to go with Beckett Seneca here. He's grown 4 inches in the past 2 years. He had an insane second half of the season, the OHL. He's fast, he's skilled, he's big, he's tenacious. There's reason why he's absolutely skyrocketing up draft boards. I've heard rumors that he go as high as 3. So Beckett Seneca, my draft lock of the year. It's been off the DraftKings Sportsbook for a while. Beckett Seneca over 11.5. Draft position plus 175. He could go in the top 5. It's just a lock. I wish I put more money on it. I think the lowest he goes is 10. And Ottawa gets a great offensive player here. Sam Dickinson, one of the best combine performances. He's a 6'4" great skating defenseman for the London Knights, who had a great year this year. I think he's got top pairing upside. They've got a couple defensemen in their early stages of their franchise, but Sam Dickinson immediately becomes your top prospect and becomes a guy that can become number 1. They've got some great forwards early on in their drafts. I think you take who you feel is the best defenseman available here, and I think for them it's going to be Sam Dickinson. I don't think they would pass him up. But if they level forward, maybe a Tidja Ginla, who's the legacy pick at number 9. Maybe they would take Tidja Ginla. Maybe they like Berkeley Cat. Who knows? Consta Helenius. Tidja Ginla goes to Calgary, where his dad is the greatest Flame ever.
I was going to ask about the relation.
Yeah, they're related. He's got another son and a daughter too, who are both awesome. So the Ginla family is going to be around for a while in the hockey world. Tidge is like a top 2 best probably scorer in the draft, pure scorer, but he does a lot of other things well. He can play center and wing. He's tenacious. He scored tons of goals this year as an elite release. I think you need an elite scoring talent down the road if you are the Calgary Flames, and Tidja Ginla can provide that. Don't overthink it. Think of the jersey sales. Think of the legacy. I think Jerome is actually working for the Flames too. They could go a different direction if they like a different player, but just take Tidge. A lot of people say defense, but they've acquired a lot of defensive prospects with these trades they've made. They have a bunch of other picks. You can get defense somewhere else. You can't get a legacy pick that could end up as another one of your best players ever, because Tidja Ginla is that good. He is that good. And he could go much higher. I saw Craig Button had him at number 5. So take Tidge. That should be a hashtag. It probably
I was just going to say that. Hashtag take Tidge.
Hashtag take Tidge. It's Tidge or Tidge. I've heard Tidge or Tidge. Maybe it's Tidge. I said Tidge.
It's T. J is just silence.
Yeah.
So is
New
the
Jersey?
I. It's just T.
Right. It's just T. What if he's T again? Well, that'd be kind of cool.
That'd be cool, yeah.
Like T. Higgins.
Mm-hmm.
Consta Helenius, the guy I talked about earlier. New Jersey could trade out of this pick. Consta Helenius is seen as maybe one of the more NHL ready guys. Great two-way game. Thought of as one of the smarter guys. Played really well in Finland. Had some concerns for certain international play, but I think overall you're getting a guy that maybe could suit up for the Devils next season. I think maybe that's bold, but he seems NHL ready. He's composed. He plays smart hockey. and he can finish. Good offensive talent, good two-way talent. Devils want to be good. They want to, make the playoffs. How about you take a guy in the first round that could help you as soon as next year, maybe? I think that makes a lot of sense. They're pretty good on defense. I don't think they need a defenseman. I think you take who you feel is the most NHL ready forward here. And that could be Constantinius. Zane Parekh. Feels weird having Zane Parekh at 11, but that's just how the defensemen shake out. 33 goals and 96 points as a right shot defenseman in the OHL for a very good Saginaw team. It was hard for me to take him out of the Ottawa spot because I think he's like their best offensive talent defensively since Erik Karlsson. He's drawn comparisons to Erik Karlsson. He's really tremendous, just an offensive wizard. For a guy that's known for his offense, I've heard his defensive capabilities are pretty decent as well. I don't think you're going wrong Buffalo here. I think you're just going BPA, best player available. That's for Truck if he's still watching using BPA. So he loves that term. Same Parekh. I mean, you don't overthink this. This is a guy that can help quarterback a top power play and be an offensive stud. But maybe they go with a guy like Carter Yakupchuk down the board. A little meaner, can still score. Berkeley Catton, maybe my favorite player outside of Celebrini in the draft. I can't believe I have him at 12, but it seems like that might happen. I think he could go much higher. I think he could go a little lower than this. But he supremely skilled 116 points in WHL last year. Reminds me, and a lot of others, of Logan Cooley. I see a little Jack Hughes in his game, maybe not upside wise. He's so good, so silky, so smooth, great finisher, great hands. Fought Tijiginla, which is funny. They're friends. They fought this past year, which is pretty funny. Yeah, he said BPA in the chat. This is a home run. You trade Cutter Gauthier, you got Matvey Michkov coming in. Why not add a stud who can play center and wing in Berkeley Catton? He's just an awesome player, so fun to watch.
I have a question for you really quick
What's
before
up?
you jump into Minnesota. This mock draft you did it hurt you this year to do this one? Because it seems like you have two players you really like going to two teams you absolutely despise, and the Canadians and the Flyers.
Yeah.
I need to know your thought process on those two.
I think Berkeley Catton can go as high as 3, but
okay,
it seems like he could be available in this range. Maybe he goes to the Senators, maybe he goes to the Kraken, like I said. It does hurt. It does, because I think Berkeley Catton's going to be a rock star. But yeah, it does, to answer your question. Carter Yakupchuk, a guy I briefly had penciled in to surprise at 7 to Ottawa. I think they need a blue chip right shot defenseman prospect. And I think they might with Parekh or Yakupchuk, but I went with Seneca. Yakupchuk, another guy that's risen up some draft boards, scored 30 goals in WHL last year. Plays with nastiness, plays hard. He's got good size. There are some things that scouts feel like he needs to work on a little bit, so maybe he doesn't go in that top 10 for that reason, but there's a lot to like with Yakupchuk. Guy that can play top 4, score some goals, throw some big hits, play nasty. I don't think you can go wrong here for Minnesota. I think they need to add to that prospect core on defense. So can't go wrong with Carter Yakupchuk. Cole Eisman, maybe the most polarizing player in the class, has a deep history with Mark Macklin Celebrini, who they took number 1. Thought of as a guy in Eisman, broke Cole Caulfield's U.S. scoring record for the program. But that's pretty much all he does to a lot of people. So that's the reason why he's falling. He could have gone as high as 2 or 3 early in the draft cycle. You could use a defenseman, but you're the Sharks and you have so many picks. If Cole Eisman can be good enough, he's a guy that can score 50 goals in the NHL with Macklin Celebrini. They played at Chattanooga St. Mary's when they were like 14. They tore it up. They're going to play together at BU this year if Celebrini decides to stay. I think this is a match made in heaven, and this is a dynamic duo for potentially 15 years for the Sharks. And I think they should roll the dice here because they could be heavily rewarded because he is a tremendous goal scorer. Detroit Red Wings, this feels like a Stevie Y guy. I'm going Michael Brandstad-Nygaard. We could have 2 Norwegians taking in the first round this year, which is pretty cool. Brandstad-Nygaard is an awesome forechecker, and he plays really hard and is a great finisher. I think he's like a maybe second line wing, third line wing. That's really good though. Like if he's a third line right wing, he's the best third line right wing maybe in the league. I think he drew some comparisons to Alex Tuch, if I'm not mistaken. Either way, if I'm mistaken or not, I kind of see that a little bit. Maybe not the scoring upside at the NHL, but I see some similarities. Plays physical, right shot scores, decent enough skater, not going to blow you away with speed, but this feels like a Red Wings guy. This feels like an Yzerman guy to me. And he's a Mike, so shout out to the Mike. We have a couple Mikes in the first round this year for me. Stian Solberg, the Norwegians going back to back. Stian Solberg, not known for his offense, but his stout defensive play and physicality, rose up draft boards like crazy this year. Don't even think he was widely considered a first round pick about 3 months ago, but he could go as high as this. I have him going over 18 and a half plus 200, so I hope he does go around here. Stian Solberg just feels like a shutdown guy, maybe a second, third pairing guy, but a potentially really good one if he's on the third pairing. But I think there's a guy that could be a second pairing guy from what I've heard and read about him. So he's another guy rising for a reason. Adam Jiricek, brother of David Jiricek of the Blue Jackets, going to the Capitals. The Capitals don't really draft defensemen very high, besides the second round, like Vinny Iorio and Ryan Chesley in the past. I think the go Jiricek here has had a lot of injury troubles, but which could hurt him in some people's eyes. But his teams, I don't know if it's international or his actual team or both, really missed him. So maybe that in their tournament play. So maybe that highlights how important Jiricek is. But this is a guy that's been penciled in the first round for a while. I think Washington just takes a safe pick on defense, adds to an area of their prospect core that needs it with Jiricek. The Blackhawks, again, they moved up a couple spots about a month ago for this, and they get Igor Chernyshov, another one of the guys I really like. Again, a guy I've only seen highlights of, not that I would watch live Russian games, but anything I've seen or read about Chernyshov, he's a great skater. And he's kind of got a little Patrick Laine in him to me. And, Patrick Laine has had his bumps and bruises, but Patrick Laine is a scorer. He can score 30 goals. I think Igor Chernyshov has the upside to be a pretty good scorer, like second or third line scorer. Good speed, good power from what I've seen. And I like Chernyshov a lot to the Blackhawks. Jed Luchenko, a guy I love for the Bruins, going to Vegas, knowing Vegas, they will trade him in the next 2 years because they love trading their first round picks. They trade them all pretty much. They already traded David Edstrom, and they took last year. Jed Luchenko, Bruins will have some familiarity with him because he's on Guelph, where Matt Poitras played. They'll have some intel from guys around there. I imagine they watched him a good amount this year too, but he goes to Vegas here. Vegas just really needs anything in their prospect core. They don't really have a huge area of specific need to me. So I think you don't go wrong here and you go Luchenko and you take a good player. Fast, tenacious, good scorer. Trevor Connolly, another one of the most polarizing guys for different reasons. Some instances with swastikas, other off-ice stuff.
Jesus.
Yeah. But he is really, really, really good. He had some he drew the ire in the latest international tournament where he kind of screwed USA out of a gold medal, took a 5-minute penalty late that was really dumb, really dirty. He's got some decision-making, temper issues that people think could be a thing, but he is like really, really good. So some team's gonna take him in the first round, but he could go later in the first round than this. I believe someone said his agents from Long Island might know Lou Lamoriello. I don't remember the whole thing, but there seems to be some Lou Lamoriello connection. And the Islanders have a horrible prospect core, so they could use just the upside here. Like some teams gonna have to bite the bullet, the PR nightmare. Maybe the Islanders do it. I have a hard time seeing him fall that much farther because he's so good. But yeah, there are very reasonable concerns about Trevor Connolly on and off the ice. But the skill is undoubtedly there, no matter how you look at it. EJ Emery, another one like Sam Dickinson, a great combine tester, big athletic right shot defenseman, makes life hell for forwards. Not the biggest offensive upside guy, but a guy that could be a good second pairing defenseman. I think down the road he goes to the Kings. Drew Doughty isn't going to be around forever. You got Brant Clark. Why not add EJ Emery to the mix down the road and take a great right shot defenseman? Michael Haig. This would hurt me. This is my guy in the first round for the Bruins, besides a certain guy that I have them taking. I love Michael Haig. He's been through a lot personally the last year and a half. He lost his dad. He's dealt with some injuries. He soared in the second half for the USHL's Chicago Steel. I think he's got dynamic playmaking and scoring ability, great hands, great finisher. There's a lot of Matthew Barzal in his game to me. Could avenge 2015 a little bit if he becomes a Matthew Barzal for the Bruins. I love Michael Haig I remember how good he was a couple years ago when he was like 15 or 16. I would see clips of him popping up on my Twitter from like prospect accounts. This kid's had eyes on him for a while. I love Michael Haig. I hope he's available at 25, but he goes to Nashville at 22 here. Liam Greentree, great scoring winger with good size, likes to hit. Some people have concerns about his skating, but that can always be fixed. He goes to Toronto. I think Toronto could use a player like Liam Greentree. It's really that simple for me. Tarek Parashak, I believe he had 105 points this year. Really rose up the draft boards in the WHL. Colorado likes skilled players, man. I don't think you pass up on a guy like Parashak. If you like him enough here, add him to a dynamic group of forwards. Maybe he can become a good scorer in the NHL. The Bruins, the one we've been waiting for. I have them taking Sasha Boisvert, bound for North Dakota in the fall. 6'2" center, scored 36 goals. I believe like 85, 86 points in the USHL. Smooth skater for that size. Good shot. People like his two-way game as well. I think there's a lot to like. Scott Wheeler said this, and I noticed this too. I do some reading throughout the year on guys. I haven't seen much negative about Sasha Boisvert. He impressed teams at the combine. He's athletic. Again, like if Scott Wheeler's saying that a guy who gets paid to do this is one of the top resources in the world, that just backs it up even more. I don't think you can go wrong with Sasha Boisvert. If they land him here, Bruins fans should be stoked. I think he plays 1 or 2 years at North Dakota, which is a great hockey hotbed. And we go from there. Maybe he's a top 6 center for the Bruins. That'd be great. But I could see him going a little earlier, which would make me sad. But Cole Baudouin, thought of as maybe the hardest worker in this class. He's just kind of a psycho, but like in a good way. Scores goals, decent size. Just like I've seen a couple people say, like he's going to be one of those guys that's a difference maker in the playoffs someday. Blocks shots, scores a big goal, plays hard, gets in people's heads. Sounds like a good fit for Montreal if they're trying to get back to their old identity, right?
I would say so, yeah.
Sounds like someone they like.
Kind of fits the bill, yeah.
They could use center depth too. They get Demidov at 5, Baudouin. I think they'd be very happy with that haul in the first round. One of the guys I mentioned earlier, Leo Salin Wallenius, thought of as one of the better skating defensemen. Good puck mover from Sweden. The Hurricanes, they're kind of a mystery. They take the guys that you're kind of like, of course, the Hurricanes took them, like a Russian no one's thinking about, or some other guy no one's thinking about. That's kind of off the board. Maybe it's Igor Surin. He feels like that might be the guy. Maybe Nikita Artemonov. But I'm going with Leo Salin Wallenius. They have some good right shot prospect talent. They really don't have a ton on the left side besides Alexander Nikishin, and they haven't put pen to paper on Jakob Slavin yet, which they probably will. But I think you had a good player, a good puck mover, and Leo Salin Wallenius here. But I kind of expect them to just take another Russian. They'll turn into a stud or some kid no one's thinking about. And everybody like, of course the Hurricanes did that. They always take guys like that. Dean Letourneau decided to come to BC a year early, 6'7" center. After Will Smith left, he decided, hey, I'll go in and play for BC. 127 points over 60 goals at St. Andrews College last year, playing at the U18 AAA level. Draws comparisons to Tage Thompson for good reason. I don't know if he'll be Tage Thompson, but with the right coaching development and skating improvement starting at BC this year, Dean Letourneau could be a monster. And the Flames have acquired a lot of picks. I think they can afford to take the upside pick here and go for Dean Letourneau and hopefully turn him into a Tage Thompson for them. I'm very excited to watch him at BC next year. He is ginormous. He can score and he can make plays. If you can develop him right, you're getting a hell of a player in Dean Letourneau. Igor Surin, who I mentioned, this would suck if the Stars who draft so well just get Igor Surin and he becomes awesome, because another one of those guys known for his compete, another riser on draft boards. Feels like a playoff type of guy from what I've read. Maybe plays more towards the bottom 6, but is a good hard-nosed center, can score a little bit for the Dallas Stars. New York Rangers, who I couldn't find the article after I checked for it again, but I saw something they might be looking to trade up. Maybe they package Capo Caco and try to move up with that 30th overall pick. But I have them going with another riser, Sam O'Reilly. Play center and right wing, had a great year. As the season went along, got even better for London, who was very good. The Rangers, like, they're in a competing spot. I don't know how much they're going to overthink their draft pick. I think they're just going to take someone they like. And Sam O'Reilly feels like he could be a good fit with the Rangers from what I know about him. Ryder Ritchie to Anaheim via Edmonton. This is the Adam Henrique pick. Ryder Ritchie plays center and wing. A lot of skill. Ducks like skill. They get their hard-nosed defenseman. Now they get a skilled guy that can play wing and center. Good skater in Ryder Ritchie. And to close out the first round, Philadelphia with Florida's pick from the Claude Giroux trade. The theme continues. Another riser. May not go in the first round, but I like Merrick Vanacker to go 32. Feels like a flyer. Has good size, good scoring ability around the net. Plays hard, hits people. Merrick Vanacker feels like a flyer to me. Maybe he is in the second round, but I have the Flyers taking him to close out the first. And that is my mock draft.
Hey. As informative as always.
Every year, I try to make it informative without dragging on, and I think I get slightly better every year.
I'd say so.
That's
Absolutely.
That's the goal.
Nothing against you, but I think that first one we ever did was like
that was crazy. Yeah,
well, it was like
that was crazy.
Like I can't even remember.
It was unrefined.
Yeah,
it was unrefined.
Definitely an hour, probably a little bit more, or at least close to it.
Yeah,
that first
was
one
crazy.
Where it's like, all right, I appreciate all the information. I'm sure our listeners do too, but
yeah, I've grown.
But it's good.
I've tightened
Absolutely.
things up. But we'll see. Maybe some of these picks will trade hands. Maybe that one of those picks will belong to the Carolina Hurricanes via Marty Nietzsche's trade. So outside of their own, of course. But very excited for the first round. The Bruins don't pick until the fourth round, then the fifth and sixth, and then they don't have a seventh. So we got 4 picks right now as it stands for the Bruins. I believe it's 22, 122, 154, 186. So for anyone who needs to know that, let's go. Let's get Sasha Boisvert. Let's get Michael Hague. Or let's get Jet Luchenko, please.
Okay. One of these days, too, for the people that may be new to the show.
Or Beaudoin. I like Beaudoin, too.
Okay.
But he's kind of like in the Trent Frederick mold a little bit to me. I like to go for someone with a little more upside.
I was going to say one of these days, whether it's this or the football mock draft that you do for the people that are maybe new listening, that you also do a football mock draft as well. You do not do trades for these. One of these days, I'm waiting for you. I'm waiting for you to come in with this, being like, I got like 5 or 6 trades in this thing. This is going to be crazy this time around.
I don't think I'll ever do trades.
Really put your brain to the test.
I do devise scenarios I think are plausible based off my own thoughts and reports.
Yeah, you sprinkle them in once in a while. Like this could happen.
Speaking
this
of
guy
that,
could maybe end up.
Then when we talked about Ottawa and Philadelphia, maybe 7 and 12 doesn't sound like that's really likely to happen anymore. And might have not been likely to begin with, but that was speculated that 7 and 12 and other pieces could swap hands. And Thomas Chabot will not be traded, who we talked about in that too. They poured cold water on that. So let's switch to Celtics. I guess I'll just start with my parade reactions as we talk about some stuff from that and some other news with the team. Parade was awesome. Drew Holiday threw it was either a Michelob or a Coors Light. I should remember because they're pretty different looking. But so much went on that I kind of forget. Threw on like if I had like Giannis Antetokounmpo arms, maybe I would have reached back and caught it, but I think it was just on my range. I looked for it, but some kid caught it behind me. Pretty cool. Drew Holiday was doing a lot of stuff like that. He caught it. Some kid had like Celtics Jordans or something. He threw his shoe. Drew Holiday. He signed it and threw it back. I didn't see that.
There was a lot of that. I was kind of surprised.
Oh, cool.
They had watching it on TV. They had Pritchard for a good minute or two was catching stuff out of the crowd rather, not the stands, and signing stuff. And they made a point of like, oh wow, I feel like we've never seen like athletes kind of do that where they're able to get it obviously back to the person too. I think I texted you, there was the one girl that had the basketball that Jaylen Brown was fiddling with on the duck boat, and funny enough called him the VIP of the NBA Finals, which was pretty funny. Obviously knowing that she meant MVP, but just kind of caught up in the moment. So it was a lot of obviously cool stuff to see just watching it on TV. But again, like to be there, I feel like had to have been absolutely insane.
Sam Hauser was bummed. He's looking for an extension now. I say that because I don't know if we put it in the L line. I feel like it came up kind of late, but we'll mention that now. The atmosphere was great. I got very minimally sunburned. I had my jersey on, so I got a little bit of red like around the jersey, a little bit like down here, a little bit on the neck, nothing on the face, nothing on the arms, legs, so that's fine. But I'm a pasty white guy. I'm gonna get sunburned no matter how much I protect myself from it with sunblock. First train I get on, shoulder checked by this woman in a rush, red hair, not like ginger, dyed red hair, just
body
tried to crack my skull open. Like if I fell back, I might not be here. Like this woman threw a big shoulder into me, because she was rushing to get out. Clearly was frustrated by all the crazy Celtics fans. I'm like, what the fuck? Like crazy. Some guy told me I should have done something about it. Like, what do you want me to
What are you
do?
gonna do?
Like,
Yeah, start a fight at the
let me
Celtics parade.
run.
That
Let me
would have been
run off the
brilliant.
train and let me run off the train and go fight a woman. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
be
good
that
idea,
guy.
pal.
Yeah,
That's a
exactly.
good idea.
Hmm.
No, but that was crazy. We were directing traffic, me and my buddy Matt, on the way in and out, like people coming in and out of the train leaving. We're starting some chants. It was pretty funny. It was a great time. Saw a couple old high school friends too, which was cool, and had a good time. So that was my thoughts. Um, really cool atmosphere. Didn't get sunburned. Got body checked though.
If
It's
there was
okay.
one negative to the day, it was
I
that
ate it.
100%.
I ate it.
Well,
That
kudos to
that
you then.
woman, she must have been rattled because I don't know if she wanted to knock me over, but she did not knock me over. I ate that shit. The years of playing poor hockey have paid off. I can take a hit.
There you go.
Um,
It all works out in the
yeah.
end.
So that's
I
about
did
that.
see the video because you texted me. One of the funnier things you saw was Luke Cornett. You talk about directing traffic. Luke Cornett directing the fans
Yeah,
to get
he's
loud.
like,
I did finally see that video the other day.
quiet it
Very
down.
funny, very on brand with Luke Cornett.
So I had a Dr. McGillicuddy's nip, and I was like, this is the last boat. Like, I don't need to drink this thing. So I threw it, tried to land it on there. Wasn't expecting anybody to catch it, and it landed on there. Nobody caught it, so I hope somebody drank it because I was like,
Yeah.
screw it. What if I get it on there? That's cool.
Mhm. I did see
You
the
know?
one Porzingis. I think I texted you this. One of the cool moments for him was just the absolute freak of nature that he is. Uh, all in one motion, caught a nip, downed it, spiked it off the top of the duck boat, and then as he was doing that, somebody whipped a beer at him, caught that too, just was bare paw, one handed, and down that as well. I'm like, this guy's having the time of his life. Al Horford, I saw almost got domed by a can too. Somebody hummed it by like him and Tito right
I
in the
don't have
middle
the
of the two
balls
of
to throw
them.
a can. I like that people throw them, but you got to underhand a can.
You gotta like
You
kind of
can't toss
yeah,
a can.
yeah.
You gotta buddy, like little diaper shot even.
Yeah. Oh, I think I texted it to you too. Derek White had to have killed somebody in the stands because he did that. Like he off the duck boat, fully extended back and hummed a beer can. I'm like, dude, you're gonna like absolutely annihilate somebody with that
He's
thing.
gonna
What
have
are
a
you
lawsuit.
doing? Yeah, absolutely. The one kind of thing that stunk, I'm sure you saw the picture of it, Jaylen Brown. I don't know if he's still looking for that ring he lost at the parade. So if he can find if somebody can find that for him, that'd be obviously good. But just the whole thing was crazy to see. As it always is with these parades. And I think a lot of the players have kind of echoed that. That because at the start of it, I feel like too. I don't know where you were in relation to where the parade started. But
I
just
was in the
watching
state
it.
house, like kind of
Okay,
towards the beginning, I think.
yeah. But like coming out of the garden when they first
Okay.
showed it, it didn't really look like there was a ton of like I'm like, okay, maybe, it's like it wasn't that deep of people, but then obviously as it went on, you saw the rows and rows of people. I think they said it was maybe like 1.3 or 1.5 million people ended up showing up, I think was the final number, right around there. So obviously a phenomenal turnout like it usually is when a Boston sports team wins these
Oh,
championships.
dude, I just totally remember this now. Um, Went to 7-Eleven as we were leaving. We got off the train. Then we took an Uber because that was just going to be easier than getting on another crazy train going on the commuter rail and
Hmm.
then going to get our car and go back. Um, some kid walked up to the 7-Eleven cash register with a huge cut, like
Dash.
gash cut, not like normal cut, like
Hmm.
cut open, split open cut, and said, "Can I get a paper towel to the cash register?" Right when I was there, I was like, "Holy
What is that going to
shit!
help? See, when you
Did
started
this
that
kid get
story,
shanked? Did he
yeah, when
get
you start,
shanked?"
that's not where I thought that was going. When you started that story with, I saw a kid walk up to the cash register at 7-Eleven, did not think you were going to say he had
Lot
something
of
else with a
blood,
G in his hand. Like,
not dripping blood, but like he was like, "Can I get a paper towel?" I was like,
just kind
"Oh
of
my
ripped.
god."
Yeah. Little
That was
Band-Aid
real.
too
I
while you're
hope
at it. Like,
hey, you're at 7-Eleven. Maybe they have somewhere you can get gauze and wrap your shit up.
maybe,
I don't know.
yeah.
Get some bandage.
Yeah.
But
Who
wow, it was a
knows?
good day.
That's good.
Um,
It looked like a lot of fun on, again,
it
as the
was.
parades always are, I'd have to assume.
Yeah,
Um, Long time coming, obviously, for the Boston
long
Celtics.
time coming. Yep.
Hmm.
Should we talk about a guy we mentioned along with his dad Tito? Al Horford.
Hmm.
With Grossbeck announced will be coming back for another 15 million and another chance at a championship.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Al said it himself too. He was basically like, I don't know where those reports started. Like I was really never thinking of that, paraphrasing here, but plan was never to retire. He said he's going to start up in a couple of weeks. always vocal on social media. I always thought this was his wife, just not doing enough digging, but I believe it's his sister, Anna Horford. She basically said the same thing. Rumors of our retiring are always weird. Be one thing if he were a minimal bench player who came in every now and then. He started the majority of the playoffs and was crucial for the Celtics' success. Age doesn't really matter when he's still one of the best bigs in the league. And maybe she's onto something because it does not seem like Al Horford is going to be taking a bench role to start next season. As we've come to find out today, we're kind of jumping around here with the way that the news has come out timing wise. But we found out today, Kristaps Porzingis, not surprising, is going to miss quote unquote what was the quote, the very early part of the season.
Yeah, like early part of the season.
It was something weird. They didn't obviously put a timetable on it or anything because it's obviously too early to tell. Like for me, not a lot of thought there and really any take because we kind of figured that. Like once you heard that he kind of re-injured himself or the injury kind of lingered as the playoffs went on, like it was kind of set in stone. I feel like he wasn't going to be ready. Definitely wasn't going to play in the Olympics, which we kind of knew that as well. So Al Horford, right decision that he's not going to retire because he's probably going to have a starting job again next year when he comes back, at least to start the season, and that'll be good to see for Al. And it stinks for Porzingis too.
Why wouldn't you want to be in this group again if you can still play, and why wouldn't you want to help lead them?
Absolutely.
Going out on a championship is cool, but going on a back-to-back is definitely cooler.
Yeah, that was the one thing I was a little maybe thinking he might retire. It's just, again, Al Horford, the career he's had, now finally gets a ring. Like, what else do you really have to play for at this point in your illustrious career that he's had? But like you said, his best chance of winning a second ring going back-to-back is with this team. So why would you give that opportunity up?
Right.
Yep.
No brainer.
One guy that might give it up, though.
Yeah.
We don't know.
O'Shea Brissett.
Little surprising, not gonna lie. Nothing against O'Shea Brissett, but a guy that made 2.5 or was going to make 2.5 million if he opted in to next season. He declined that, I believe, on Sunday. He had to make a decision on it, or I don't know what the penalty would have been, or if he just ends up becoming a free agent anyway. But like I said, declined his $2.5 million player option. Brissett will now be an unrestricted free agent this summer. That was from, I believe, Keith Smith was the one that put that tweet out. Yeah, it was. A little surprising. Because, again, not to knock O'Shea Brissett, but, like, I know you're an NBA champion. How much more of a pay raise? And, again, we've seen NBA players
more money from the Celtics.
Yeah, maybe.
So he didn't take the option to get a little more from the Celtics.
Fair. That's a good way to think of it.
The NBA market is crazy. Somebody could pay him a decent amount.
I was going to say that. We've seen, NBA players, again, nothing against O'Shea Brissett, but NBA contracts tend to get a little crazy at times. Depending on the player and the role and stuff. So if he's betting on himself, I don't necessarily blame him. Again, you can put NBA champion on your resume. Again, from an outside standpoint, though, I don't know how realistic teams are going to look at that. Like, yeah, you were, but you played maybe like 10 minutes, if that. But again, I can't knock him too much for betting on himself. And I'm with you. Like, if the Celtics want to give him a pay raise, I'm perfectly fine with that because, he fit a role nicely here and had some pretty nice moments off the bench as, more so a main defensive force than anything.
He was the first guy Tatum hugged when they won.
Yeah, he was friend of Tatum, so got to think he'll want to keep him around for that.
Maybe that's a little shift in the bench. Lose him. Sam Hauser's looking for an extension, so I believe he's under contract for next season. So that doesn't really.
Yeah, matter. He had a club option, I think, which I can't imagine the Celtics would decline that. So.
Yeah, that would be kind of weird. So good for O'Shea if he catches up, but I don't know. Guess he wants to test out the market. So
yeah.
Do you have any concerns down the road that Sam Hauser might want more money elsewhere?
Hauser, no.
Or do you think he's going to stick around?
I think Hauser will stick around. Hauser, I don't have any concern with. Pritchard is another story, a guy that not to.
He's got 3 more years though, doesn't he?
He does, but I was more in the sense of maybe I was going off on my own kind of little tangent, but maybe in more sense of bigger role type of thing. Hauser doesn't strike me as that type of guy. I feel like he'll take a contract to stay here. Pritchard, obviously, we know, like you said, is under contract. But maybe a guy I could see, especially if he continues to grow as a player as he has. That's one where maybe I look at it okay, maybe he gets a little vocal, maybe wants to go do his own thing. And they have to move on from him. And again, we'll have to figure out.
Requested trades twice, so
exactly. That's the other thing too. Is that was all last year. We kind of heard that bellowing from him. But
I was done with Peyton Pritchard last year.
As was I. There were a couple of games where he just was kind of a no-show, and I'm like, dude, you're one to talk of wanting to trade and thinking you're worth a decent amount of money, and he proved us wrong. So kudos to him.
Yeah, good for him.
But I mean, the only thing you could maybe wonder and get a little worried about is once the salaries start to add up here with, Tatum's going to get a super max soon. We have Brown's contract, Holiday and Porzingis' extension. You have D White that's up for a well-deserved extension as well. They'll find a way to make it all work. I have no doubts about that. But that is something I feel like that maybe could creep into some pessimists' minds of, if Hauser gets a decent pay raise, what's that going to do for you down the line? Is that going to maybe handcuff you from making other moves? But as we've seen on the flip side of that, Brad Stevens has found ways to make things work, and I have no doubts that he's going to do that again.
Me too.
2 thumbs up
I
for
don't
you.
know. Sam Hauser seems like he likes it here a lot. He
Yeah.
doesn't. I don't know if he's like a big money guy.
Yeah,
but
if
he'll
there were
get
two
his,
guys,
but he doesn't need to like go ball out money.
No,
wise.
absolutely
Doesn't
not. I
seem
was
like
going to
that
say,
type of guy.
if there's two guys that strike you as taking hometown discounts, it's the two guys that are up for contracts, but potentially in the future. It's Hauser and White for me. Like, those are two guys.
Derek White, new commercial, already got his teeth fixed.
He did, yeah. He got those fixed. I think
he has really embraced being the commercial guy.
He has,
like
surprisingly, because he doesn't strike me as like the most outspoken. Like, I feel like he just kind of goes about his business and kind of takes that quiet assassin role pretty well.
But he's
starting to pop up in more
fired
things.
up on the jumbotron at the Sox game. They went to the Sox game, hung out.
Yep.
But yeah, Kelly Jansen said he was like freaked out by Porzingis' size, which was pretty funny. But any other Celtics notes, or do we want to talk about a certain Patriots running back to wrap up the show?
Not really. I mean, we kind of touched on the surprise factor of the draft tonight. Not going to spend a whole lot of time on that, trying to figure out who the Celtics will, unless you have a mock draft that you want to pull out of.
Bridges? What about Bridges?
Yeah, I'd see. Trade. I didn't.
The stupidest trade ever. Like, what are those? We're trading.
What
pick
else
swaps.
was it?
You can trade pick swaps, and then they're like the Suns are getting their pick back. The Rockets are involved. What the fuck?
Suns might be trading Kevin Durant to the Rockets. That's a potential.
Like Paul George might go to the Warriors. Isaiah Hartenstein's leaving the Knicks. Lots going on with the Knicks. Boyan's
I don't care what people say. The NBA's got the most fun offseason in free agency out of any sport because I mean it gets wild very quickly.
Like I knew Bridges was good, but I saw this trade. I was like, holy shit.
I don't know if he's 5 first. It was 5, right? I thought I saw somebody say because I didn't see the whole. I know one of the Bogdanovich was in it as well. So I mean that's somebody said it perfectly that the Nets are more gonna, or excuse me, the Knicks are going all in. They are the team right now that is
giving teams really good players.
Yeah, they do. I mean, they love getting draft picks and maybe blowing things up. But it is an interesting move for the Knicks. They obviously see themselves as the team primed to make a run at the Celtics, and they got a good shot at doing so with the talent that's on that team now and the trio that they're building there. But I think they're still a ways away, as we've seen the Celtics. If they can keep this team together, I'm not really going to fear anybody until I'm proven different rather. But a nice move for them. I mean, they do get they needed another star with why am I drawing a blank on the point guard that they have there? Jalen Brunson. They needed someone to go with him. Bridges will be that guy, and they'll have a nice little 1-2 punch, and some other guys to step up with that team as well, with the Hearts of the world and guys like that. I think they re-signed Anunoby today too.
Oh really? They got the Villanova guys there.
Yeah, they did. It's the Villanova Knicks I've seen.
Yeah, he's getting cooked for the whole Villanova clip from back in the day.
The only thing I was going to ask you, because again, like I said, we're not going to do really any draft stuff tonight because haven't done a whole lot of homework on it. Not really going to try to predict who the Celtics are taking with the 30th overall pick, and then I think they have 54. That 54, which I believe I think the NBA is 2 days, so it's tomorrow night. It would be, if I'm not mistaken. A lot of speculation what they might do with that pick. A lot of speculation of where a certain NBA Sun will go in this draft. Bill Simmons had a pretty interesting comment. I heard him on his podcast the other day. Had a take where he said the Celtics should take Bronny James with that pick and pretty much hold him hostage. You shake your head because I'm with you a little bit of
Max Christie.
It is to me, it is a little bit of an interesting take where, okay, we know the Lakers want him to keep LeBron and play with LeBron. If we take him the pick right before, or we threaten to take him with the pick right before, what are you going to give us if you want him so badly?
Right.
I think it's an interesting way to look at it.
The Celtics should target this Max Christie guy. Who is Max Christie?
I don't see. I again meant to look into that more, but didn't obviously do so. But again, I was intrigued by it. I'm like, all right, that is an interesting way to look at it. We joked about that way long ago before we had any sort of title inclinations with the Celtics team of like, it'd be kind of funny to maybe take Bronny, and then, the story was if you get Bronny, you're probably going to get LeBron James if he opts out with the Lakers. So, Celtics draft Bronny.
Well,
maybe
he
they
might
get
sign
LeBron.
He might sign 3 by 160. I saw with the Lakers. So.
Oh, did you? I see. I haven't been on Twitter really at all today. So I was surprised by the Paul George stuff that you sent me because I didn't see the Warriors rumor. That'd be kind of wild. And like I texted
that,
you.
That meme was funny that I sent.
It was, yeah. He'd be an upgrade over Clay like I sent you.
My thing on the draft is I don't think Zach Edey is falling to the Celtics.
Oh
So
God,
that
no,
dream for
no.
anybody who had that. I feel like earlier in the cycle, there was like a chance he was available for the Celtics. I've seen Deron Holmes from Dayton and Tristan Newton from UConn a couple times. Deron Holmes apparently is pretty good, but I watched him UConn and I like that Tristan Newton kid. So I'd be cool with
Okay,
him at 30. That's my take. Tristan
fair
Newton
enough.
from
You,
UConn,
you
champion.
got more of a take than I do because again, I don't know anything about
That's it.
anything, especially that late in the
We should have had
draft.
Luke
Like,
on.
yeah, he'd be perfect. He's the guy for that. Absolutely. He helped us with
Damn
that.
it.
What, 3 or 4 years ago? We had him on for draft stuff and
Yeah.
ended up working out pretty well. We
Yeah.
got a nice little teaching moment there. But if I mean, for me, if there's a center available or something like that, because now obviously we know Porzingis isn't going to be ready to start the year. Again, love Al, but he's only getting older. So how much longer can you rely on him? Cornette was banged up at times last year. Um, Outside of them, you really don't have a whole lot of. You get Kata, obviously, but again, you don't really know what Kata is until you give him some consistent minutes. I wouldn't hate them, maybe a draft and stash type of thing at 30. I saw there was reports maybe they
Yeah.
might trade the 30th pick. I don't know what you'd be able to get for that. I can't imagine it's much.
Nothing.
Unless there's a super desperate team out there that'll give you maybe like a back end of a bench type of player to give you some depth. But if you can get some sort of, some depth at the center position or a
Brad
bigger
would turn
body.
that pick into someone like awesome off the bench.
Yeah, exactly. Like again, I have no doubts that Brad Stevens will be able to figure it out because he's been great and there's a reason why he's executive of the year and an NBA champion. So
Yep, exactly. Ryan, the Patriots gave Ramondre Stevenson right after the show a 4-year, or maybe it was the day after, a 4-year
I think it
extension
was the day after. Yeah,
that I am very cool with. 4 by 36, 17 million guaranteed. Think all of those numbers are very fair. An $8 million signing bonus could push incentives could push the contract to 48 million. No incentives in 2024. 600K each from 2025 to 2028 for scrimmage yards, 1,400, 1,500, 1,600. 600K for Pro Bowl, plus All Pro first or second team. He is the sixth highest ranked running back in terms of contract average. And that six number might be kind of high, but I think the money is fine and the Patriots can spend it.
mm-hmm.
And it's nice to see them commit to another successful homegrown talent. It's been like a up and down couple years for Ramondre Stevenson, but that's partially because, those 2 years where he's more in the 600s of rushing yards, he, missed some time. So we saw what he was capable of in 2022, 1,040 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns. He catch passes too. Powerful guy. I don't know how you can dislike this deal. I think it's just another good piece of business. They're fortunate to have a very comfortable financial picture right now, and they use up a little bit more of that money with Ramondre Stevenson. Joins Barmore, joins Onwenu, joins Duggar, and we'll see who's next. And for any Jennings as homegrown guys that are getting their paydays and sticking around.
Mm-hmm.
Josh Uche for a year, but that's a year. You never know. But
Exactly.
that's going to go next off season. So I love it. I like Ramondre. And we'll see how he fits with a guy like Antonio Gibson this year.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I don't know how. I mean, there's one thing I can think of why people may not like this, and I can kind of see the argument with it as well. But we'll stick with the positives for now. I like it too. I think that's a super fair deal for a running back of his caliber. And again, maybe there were some people that want to argue against it. Giving him that type of contract when last year was an up and down year for him. People forget last year. People forget last year before he got hurt and he kind of ended the season. He was starting to come back from those early season struggles. Like you could see the elusiveness was there.
Like let's look at the team last year too.
Exactly.
Look at the play calling. Look at the offensive line. Look at the quarterback.
Look at the quarterback situation.
We have a capable situation around him, and as of now, we know he's at good health. So
for sure,
let's keep it that way. And I have no doubt that Ramondre can return to close to, if not around that 1,000-yard form.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And the one kind of knock I did want to maybe get some thoughts on, because I can see the argument against it. You mentioned now the sixth highest paid running back in the NFL, and that has kind of led some people to kind of argue like, all right, you're paying a running back a decent amount of money, but you won't go out and pay a receiver. And I can see that because it's gotten frustrating this offseason, but then you roll your eyes exactly on the flip side of it. Like, do you really care? Like, again, we have talked about it ad nauseum. We would like to see the Patriots go out and spend money on a wide receiver that can help this team. But again, as we know, this is not going to be a bounce back, they're going to win 12 plus games, make the playoff. It's going to be a slow build. We know that. And as we talked about, why not link some of these guys or ink some of these guys up, sign, a decent amount of your glue
Yeah.
guys, your culture guys that they're clearly putting an emphasis on. And Stevenson fits that absolutely to a T. And
Yeah,
it's
and
been
you have
one
him
of,
and Gibson for at least the next 3 years. So like
yeah,
your running
absolutely.
back
You've got
position's
some
kind of set.
consistency there. Absolutely. You don't have to worry about that position, which they haven't had to worry about, I feel like, in the past. Because they've done a good job of addressing that position with, offseason signings and in Stevenson's case, drafting a solid running back. So that's a position you don't have to worry about. I'm perfectly fine with it. And again, like I don't think there's going to be any sort of fall off. I'm with you. He'll bounce back. Perfectly fine. And again, it gives Drake May a safety blanket that is going to be able to produce
Yeah.
and whatever the role is.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fine contract.
Yeah,
He'll be fine. The team will be fine.
mhm. No, the team might
That's the
not be
answer.
fine because I mean
Yeah, well,
it'll be a work in progress as we know, but I
yeah, I
see where you're
guess
coming
so.
from there. Yeah,
We do have the first pick being in the NBA draft, and it is Zachary
some
Rissacher.
French guy. Yeah,
His
I
first
think the
name is
first two
spelled
picks might have been French guys.
Zaccharie. I can't say I've seen Zachary spelled that way. I've seen Zachariah spelled similar to that. Shout
Mhm.
out Zachariah Branch, USC. Love him. He's gonna pop off this year. But yeah, Zachary Rissacher. I probably didn't pronounce that correct.
No,
I'm interested. The only thing I care about is where the Klingon kid goes because I like Klingon watching UConn, the big center. He'll probably go in the top 10.
okay.
Any closing thoughts, Ryan?
No, like I said, I kind of alluded to with the Celtic stuff. I fall into the trap. I'm curious to see where Bronny ends up. Again, I doubt it's going to be in the first round unless somebody's absolutely insane. I did see right before I think you started the mock draft, and I was looking across Twitter for any trades or anything that have broke. Real quick on that too, like I texted you, was talking to you before the show started. Feel bad for Malcolm Brogdon. Traded again this year. His last 2 years have had to play for the Portland
Washington,
Trailblazers and the
some of them.
Washington Wizards. Like that poor guy. Did see he might be on the trade block though, so maybe they flip him quickly and he gets out of that situation. Um,
Right. Yeah,
but
I
I was
mean,
gonna say I did see Bronny. I think they said one of the it might have been ESPN said that he was the sixth picked player to go first overall. Like people are just that easy at throwing their money away. Like, come on, what are we doing here? There's no shot that was gonna happen. I don't know why you would even take that bet. Just kind of crazy to see. But like I said, I am kind of curious to see where he ends up. If he ends up falling to the Lakers, where they think 55 is what they have in the second round,
mm,
or maybe some team gets creative. We've heard Dallas has been maybe linked to him and have liked him. I don't know what pick they have in the second round. Um, I would have to assume it's before the Lakers at 55, so that'll be
mm,
something to keep an eye on. Where he ends up going and if he can pan out, because it is an interesting story. As much as we don't want to hear the talk about LeBron
yeah,
and Bronny, but I think it is kind of there is some interest there.
right. I'm with you. I don't even think Bronny's gonna be a good NBA player like at all.
No,
So,
I'm right there with you. I don't think
um,
so either. I think he's coming out too
so
early with the health concerns too. Obviously, he has been cleared to play, but like I don't know how those don't linger. And then the other thing too for me, I know I cut you off there, so apologies for that. I am curious to see like does a team get creative? Like say one of these or one of these good teams towards the end of the first round, maybe somebody takes a chance on him. Or like maybe somebody in the second round gets him that aren't the Lakers. Does LeBron kind of hold true to his comment of I want to play with Bronny to end my career? So I don't know what the second round looks like for the first couple of picks, but if there's a bad team there and they take Bronny with a first or second round pick, or excuse me, overall pick in the second round, does LeBron go play for one of these teams that maybe he doesn't want to play for, but I did say I want to play with my kids, so maybe I have
yeah,
to kind of own up to that and play for a stinker to finish my career.
right. Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with LeBron.
Mhm.
So it's got to be something with him.
True.
We
Yep.
do
It's
have
always going to
hockey
be
updates.
theatrics.
We do
Okay.
have
What do we
hockey
got?
updates. The belief is that the Detroit Red Wings, with this money they freed up, might be lining up for Steven Stamkos if he hits the
Ooh.
market. Apparently, Ilya Mikheyev has been traded from the Canucks to the Blackhawks, but he might not approve with his no trade clause. Let's look at that real quick. And the Bruins are watching the Marty Nietzsche situation as it unfolds, according to Frank Saravalli. So maybe they are still in the mix. Maybe they've been quiet for a little bit. The Ilya Mikheyev trade, he hasn't formally agreed, but the terms are in agreement of the Blackhawks receiving Ilya Mikheyev a second round pick and pending UFA Sam Lafferty his rights for a fourth round pick from the Blackhawks to the Canucks. the second round pick is, of course, Mikheyev has like 2 or 3 years left at like 4.2 something million. So they're trying to dump that contract. A Jake Gensel team, they've been in the mix, so maybe they're trying to make room for a run at Jake Gensel. But we'll see if Ilya Mikheyev actually becomes a Blackhawk. Maybe Sam Lafferty, his rights go there and he becomes a Blackhawk again, used to play for them. And yeah, we might have a second round pick moving around. So that's it. The Nietzsche stuff was for Frank Saravalli. There's a belief that the Devils have dangled the 10th overall pick and a deal for Martin Nietzsche. But if that were to materialize, it might not happen until draft night and in round one itself, depending on how the board breaks. The Bruins, Flames, Blue Jackets, Blackhawks, Red Wings, and Predators are some of the teams watching. So maybe the Bruins. I don't know how much it'll cost inside of Nietzsche's, but I imagine unless they come down to the asking price, it will. Maybe it's Nietzsche's, it's 25 Lysell and something else. I don't know. Okay. We'll see. But I don't know how likely it is to happen. So
okay. I had a typical end of the show idiot brain. I don't know why I thought there weren't a ton of teams before the Lakers picking at 55. Don't know where my brain was at, thinking that 55 is closer to the start of the second round than the end of it. But obviously, like I said, Celtics have 54, Lakers have 55. I'm asking if there's any Detroit Pistons front office people listening. Please do something hilarious at 53 and pick Bronny. So then, like I said, LeBron has to consider going to the Detroit Pistons to play with his kid. Instead of getting him at 55 with the Lakers pick. That'd be kind of funny to see.
Apparently, the Pistons had the surprise of the draft so far. Took Ron Holland. I don't know why that's a surprise.
I don't know who that is. So,
yeah, the thing with Nietzsche, real quick too, before we wrap it up. I also am not super high on the Bruins potentially getting him because a lot of these teams in the mix have better draft picks to offer and better other pieces to offer. So maybe the Bruins swipe him up. I don't know. That's the end of the show. Episode 200 next week. That's going to be cool. We'll have some Bruins and other stuff to talk about, post-draft stuff. Thank you so much for listening. You can find us on Twitter at Mike_Cratty, at Ryan_Salvaggio, on the show at Sound Cratty Pod. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Twitch, Podbean, and Pod Chaser. You can find us on TikTok, throw Salvaggio and Cratty in the search bar. See you next week. Hopefully the Bruins don't screw up the draft. Yeah, we'll talk to you then. Stay safe, stay healthy, be nice people, all that good stuff. We'll talk to you later. Talk to you then. Peace out.